Okay, let's do it. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to talk about strategies for delivering a better customer experience using artificial intelligence in finance and healthcare. My name is Sylvia Gedge. I'm the president with ScriptString. I'll be your host, joined by my co-host, Sheldon Sawchuk, who is my top left, who is our head of product. Next slide, please. So just a little bit, we have 60 minutes packed agenda for you. We're going to begin with an overview of artificial intelligence, what it is, how it works. We're going to move into some of the use cases and where we see artificial intelligence being used today. We also have a panel where we're going to be discussing more in-depth challenges and problems we see in finance, health services, and just overall customer experience. With at the end, we're going to sort of carve out some time for questions and answers. Next slide, please. Today, I am happy to present to you our panelists, our speakers. We are joined by Warren Gedge, Chief Technology Officer at ScriptString, Maya Kodai, our Head of Artificial Intelligence at ScriptString, Edgar Ali, Data Science Director at CIBC, Suliana Tay, Senior Technical Program Manager at Amazon Web Services, and Edward Berry, founder of On-Process Technology and Reinforced Care. And I will pass it over to Sheldon to go into what is AI.
Thank you, Sylvia. Next slide, please. So we'll start with the standard dictionary definition, the theory and development of computer systems able to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence, such as visual perception, speech recognition, decision-making, and translation between languages. It's a real mouthful. You ask 10 people, you're going to get 10 different definitions. So next slide, please. We'll go into a more concise understanding of what we're talking about here. So what is AI? At its core, AI is robotics, machine learning, language processing, and intelligent document processing. It's a lot of different things. Question is, how does it work? Ultimately, AI works to mimic human intelligence through the creation of artificial neural networks that mimic the human brain and use algorithms to find patterns and make decisions based on these patterns. Much, much simpler. Next slide, please. Some examples of AI in real life. Currently, we've got chatbots. If you've ever engaged with a chatbot, you've experienced AI. Algorithmic powered recommendations. If you're a Spotify user and you have a recommendation list, another example of AI. Facial detection technology. If you unlock your phone by looking at it, you're using AI. And of course, smart home devices. Alexa, perfect example. You're engaging with AI on a daily basis. So with that overview, I'm going to move to the next slide and introduce Warren Gedge to talk a little bit why AI is useful. So Warren is a technology pioneer who served as a senior leader and advisor to some of the world's most influential companies, including Amazon, Facebook, Box, Evernote, Westcorp, BT Group, Singtel, and more, in addition to government entities around the globe. As CTO of ScriptString, Warren focuses on pursuing his true passion for helping others solve problems and evolve their business through technology. Over to you, Warren.
Wow, that's a good introduction, Sheldon. Thank you. So AI in itself is a broad brush, and people mean it and use it in many different ways. At its heart, we believe AI is evolutionary, and it always has been involved people or nature. People have been using scripts, linking and chaining commands for ages to perform tasks. That's how computers actually got started and what the driver was for it. That goes down to its core. The hindrances have been around the perceived view and value of data over time, coupled with the legalities of intellectual property, as well as people and taxes. They've made this complex and they've made it an interesting situation around the globe. Organizations and groups are unique and everybody tries to make them the same, but we're not, and neither are the data or the information sets or the customer experiences that we're striving for. Automating day-to-day tasks has been around since the start. Adding loops for feedback came as enablement continued And then with human automated infrastructure hitting a stride, enabling math and science to intertwine with those data, those loops, driven by a desire to reduce costs and improve productivity around human activity or convert them, has led to huge gains. And I say all this, but it's really been in the past 10 years or so when pricing and geo-availability combined with modern project practices have enabled an exponential growth and those capabilities to really layer on. It's really the way people are tackling the problems right now. Data methods, though, today they're human driven, and integrations and mapping, tagging, identifications, classifications, the sterilization of the data, they started to create data warehouses that are vanilla, but everything has data, and data isn't vanilla. Data's value is in part situational and is either human or nature driven because we created it either through a machine or by ourselves, whether in a document or in a file. We made it. It was a human being that put that together. In part, the customer experience, whether that be internal or external and between systems, is what has helped define helps define an organization. And that is being driven by automation or AI, in many cases, to some degrees, and in pretty much all corners. But why can't AI help you learn your organization, your data, and be helpful and bring knowledge forward so that you can spend your time being more productive, efficient, and customer driven? It can, it just needs to be looked at differently. And that starts with allowing data and the customer to be unique and removing the barriers to knowledge. AI is very well suited for this. One might even say it partially evolved from it. Drivers like marketing or healthcare or the ability to wrap even the utility industry around human behavior is what drives to a lot of the exponential growth. And while not all businesses are pioneering or pushing the boundaries, what you're starting to see it's coming from all around you. Even the places you wouldn't think to hide or wouldn't think to look, they're implementing different forms of AI and different methods because they have the greatest to gain and they have the biggest pains. But at the end of the day, you need something that loves your data and loves it, what's human created about it, directly, indirectly, through applications or other data sets. But your data is unique and the data created by applications is unique. And it just requires a different approach to enable a better customer experience. Next.
Thank you, Warren. That was a really great sort of overview. Just to introduce to you Edgar Alec. Edgar has been designing, building, and deploying advanced analytic capabilities in financial service industry with primary focus on risk management. He is a CFA charter holder and has recently completed a Master of Management in Artificial Intelligence for Queen's University Smith School of Business. Next slide, please. So in finance, AI today is being used to speed up processing of documents, to unlock data, to reduce errors. By 2025, 50% on invoices worldwide will be processed and paid without manual intervention. On average, intelligent document processing, also called RPA, can reduce the risk of errors by 52 or more %. Edgar, in your experience, what are some of the challenges you see today within the financial services where AI is being used?
Yeah, good question. Thanks, Sylvia. I would like
Next
to
slide, please.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. So yeah, I would like to briefly highlight some of the key challenges I believe that banks are facing today and that AI can help with. The first one will be to continually exceed customers' expectations. That's always a goal in how the banking services are delivered to them. So, we know that banking is moving online, on mobile, and we have the opportunity to use AI to offer more assistance to answer questions and help the client with their products and service needs. I see a progression from simple chatbots to ultimately fully AI-based advisors that can help plan, make suggestions, just like a human financial advisor would. So, how awesome will it be to pick up your phone and ask questions to your banking app and be given a human quality answer right away, as if you had a financial advisor 24/7 in your pocket that answers your financial needs questions anytime you want. Another challenge is to improve decision-making, utilizing AI and machine learning models to improve just outcomes of all decisions that we make. Examples include credit scoring, financial planning, fraud detection, error minimization, chatbots for customer services, and so on and so forth. The list is just huge. And lastly, an ongoing challenge always is to increase efficiency and reduce costs. So by retooling the entire platform, being data-driven, breaking down silos, we can utilize AI to drive innovation and automation to the fullest. That's it for me.
Thank you, Ed. Next slide, please. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome Edward Berry to talk about AI in the healthcare space. Edward Berry is an accomplished entrepreneur founding on process technology and reinforced care. And his success resulted from an unwavering commitment to process-driven innovation, advanced analytics enabled by technology, a relentless focus on profitability, delivering exceptional customer experiences, and of course, building a respectful corporate culture. Next slide, please. So a high-level overview of current uses of AI in healthcare. AI can be used to process and extract data from intake forms, patient records, and more. Patient data segmentation analysis reduces the need for humans to handle that data, which minimizes the risk of exposing sensitive patient data. And worth noting is that 80% of the key business decisions are made from unstructured patient data. So the automation of the processing of this information can give much, much better results in a fraction of the time. With that, I'll hand it over to you, Edward, for your two use cases, and thank you.
Thank you, Sheldon. Good afternoon, everyone, and nice to meet you all. As founder and CEO of both companies, over the years, we embedded advanced analytics and predictive modeling in our delivery process with very positive results. So I'm excited to review these two use cases today for you in healthcare. The first use case I'll be reviewing is around the delivery of chronic care management. The Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, recognizes chronic care management as a critical component of primary care that contributes to better health and care for individuals. Roughly 20% of all primary care physicians' patient population is eligible for chronic care management. That's 2 or more chronic conditions. Next slide, please. For those patients that are eligible for chronic care management and have opted into the program, the PCP will outreach to those patients monthly for 20+ minutes of communication. This outreach is generally performed by a nurse or medical assistant and is focused on motivational interviewing, education, training, and coaching around these specific chronic conditions. This is all done in an effort to improve patient outcome. Preparing for the call is where AI can play an important role. Next slide, please. In preparation for the call, so that the nurse can direct the conversation, they have to review patient information from multiple disparate systems, EMRs, labs, charts, communications platforms. Based on the information gathered, the nurse can make the determination on what scripting to use, and training and education is appropriate for this call. This is where AI can play a valuable role in the delivery process of chronic care management. It takes upwards of 10 minutes for that nurse to gather that information, review the patient information, and be prepared prior to the call. Using AI integrated with automated business rules and detailed chronic management scripting for that decisioning will enable the nurse, next slide, please, to speak with more patients, drive more results, improve patient satisfaction, and more effectively utilize their nursing training and expertise. Okay, next use case. Next slide, thank you. The second use case is focused on primary care physicians and healthcare systems utilizing AI and advanced analytics to better support the most at-risk segment of their patient population. Again, roughly 20% of their patient population are eligible for chronic care management. And this population drives well over 80% of the overall cost for the healthcare provider. Next slide. So the goal here is to identify additional services and support that can be proactively implemented to better manage this patient population. Next slide, please. By applying AI, analytics, and predictive modeling to this patient population, the primary care physician will gain much better insight into patient behaviors, experiences, and risk factors. In this process, AI is used to intelligently pull data, that's psychographic data, demographic data, and medical record data from disparate systems with minimum IT effort. This data can be pulled in real time for extraction or designed to be run on a batch basis, daily, weekly, or monthly. This rich set of data fuels the analytics and the rules engine that can be used to drive multivariate linear-based regression models for predictability, such as patients most likely to be readmitted to the hospital, or patients most likely to be returned to the ER, or most likely to require home health, etc. The output of the analytics can also be used to enhance the patient's care plan, and by that, identifying services that would be most beneficial for that individual and additional services, such as remote patient monitoring or transitional care management, physical therapy, psych therapy, weight loss clinics, workout routines. These are all preventative, positive processes that can be identified for those patients. Next slide. Please, next slide, please. Thank you. This is all in an effort to drive improved patient outcome, reduce cost for that primary care physician or healthcare system, maximize care management, and overall improve patient outcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed. It's a pleasure to introduce you to Suliana Tay. Tay has worked with the largest enterprise and public sector organization across telecommunications, healthcare, and life sciences globally. Currently, Tay is focused on enterprise customer experience with AWS support. Welcome, Tay. I'm really curious to hear your perspective. How can AI help to improve? Oh, thank you. Another slide. Whoopsies. So what do we see today with AI? AI in support is available 24/7. And in today's market, it's really a mass. Customers expect immediate results to their questions. AI is known to improve customer satisfaction by being able to prioritize customer needs and provide personalizations. Only 37% of organizations feel they are using advanced analytics to create value, indicating significant room for improvement. And now, Tay, over to you. What is, based on what you are seeing in the marketplace, how can AI be used and how is it being used to really augment and improve the customer experience?
Thanks, Sylvia. So at AWS, we've led from the front, and I think that when you indicated that only 37% of customers are adopting today, we're seeing the market separate leaders and laggards more broadly than ever before. And key to that success of the leaders and of AWS and Amazon's own leadership is our machine learning and AI technology. At AWS, we have the broadest and most complete set of machine learning and artificial intelligence capabilities that support customers at all skill levels. This has been spurred by the adoption of Amazon SageMaker, which has reached over 100,000 customers who are currently running machine learning on AWS. We launched Amazon Personalize, a recommendation service, the same machine learning technology used by Amazon.com that helps us fill up our carts with all of the things that we love to purchase, things that we didn't even know we needed. And for real-time recommendations that are personalized to the particular customer, to the segment. But when we think about enterprise, I think some of the key challenges are around adoption and how to get started. particularly when we're in an environment where the skills in AI and machine learning are relatively scarce. And knowing that AWS has over 100,000 partners in our APN network, including ScriptString, and the products that are built on AWS can better address the diverse range of customer needs, the stage of adoption that our customers are pursuing AI and ML technologies, and their decisions on whether to make or buy, to focus on their core competencies and use partners, or to build their core competencies internally. And there's no need to wait for that internal capability growth when partners like ScriptString and others are available to really help accelerate the results. Over 90% of what we build on AWS is directly coming from customer requests. And building on Edward's example, I just want to touch briefly on one of our customers, GE Healthcare, soon to be its own entity. If you've read the news in the market, GE Healthcare is using AI/ML to incorporate multiple sources of data into the diagnostic scan process so that the algorithms can recognize the difference between normal and abnormal results, including unstructured data from the patients themselves. So really, Edward's example talked about the broad range of the care continuum, but even in a point solution, even just in diagnostics, there's significant value in improving patient care outcomes, lowering readmissions, and of course, getting the most accurate diagnostics. And maybe just one other point about what AWS has in our offering, even the data itself that is used and can be used to train algorithms can be acquired directly from AWS Data Exchange, including a broad set of healthcare and retail sets of data that our customers can use for those recommendations. And with tomorrow in the US being Veterans Day and a holiday, and having recently become a military spouse myself, I think a great point to close on is one of our customers and references, Rally Point, who in conjunction with Harvard University have taken a military social media approach and a successful platform, and have used machine learning and artificial intelligence to look at some of the things that are being posted and find ways to prevent and intervene when there's a potential for that veteran or active duty to self-harm, and prevent military suicides, which are currently 50% above the rates of civilians. That was all I had today, and thanks for having me, ScriptString.
Always great to have you, Tay. Thank you so much. I'm going to introduce Maya next, who is here to talk about challenges and problems with AI. And Maya has a master's degree in data science from Ryerson University and has a hyper focus on the artificial intelligence and machine learning space. She's worked on research projects in the fields of reinforcement learning, as well as research on image classification techniques for the prediction of early onset Alzheimer's disease. Also worth noting, Maya is head of AI at ScriptString. Welcome, Maya. Over to you.
Thank you, Sheldon. So lately we have been hearing a lot about explainability or interpretability. Whenever we talk about interpretable machine learning, we also talk about black box algorithms. So let's first start by explaining what a black box is. A black box is a system that performs a certain behavior to given input data and gives an output. But we really don't understand how we got that output. We don't know how the black box works. Recently, there has been a huge hype about black box algorithms because these are the algorithms that tend to be most accurate. To make things clearer, let's give an example. If we try to ask questions such as, is this a cancer cell? Or will the machine break down? Or will the loan default? Or even, is this email a spam email? We want to assign a label or a class to the email, spam or not spam. So these are all classification problems. If we specifically consider the question about the loan, and we want to create a model that would predict the appropriate class for an applicant, And we know that we have certain information about the applicant, information about his savings, his income. This will help us make a prediction. But in order for the model to make a prediction, we need to have historical data of previous applicants from which the model would have learned. So we need to gather and collect all the information about different applicants from the past, and we need to know what the outcome was for these applicants. If you have few variables that affect the outcome, we can draw conclusions that are easy to interpret. For such a problem, we can use linear regression, which is a fully explainable and interpretable algorithm. But as the number of variables used increases, interpreting the models becomes more challenging. Here on the graph, we have 2 parameters and therefore 2 dimensions. Imagine if it grows to 3 or 4 dimensions. It will be quickly impossible to represent. Next slide, please. So the problem starts with big data. Big data creates more dimensions, more relationships between predictors and outcome variables, and more complex overlay of those relationships. The more data we have, the more difficult it becomes to explain the models. Next slide, please. It's a common agreement in the machine learning field that there is a trade-off between accuracy and interpretability. The models that are the most accurate tend to be those that we don't understand. The question is, what about the models that are highly accurate and highly interpretable? Luckily, there are new methods in machine learning that were able to explain those highly complex and more accurate models. One of those methods is LIME. These methods have added, first of all, trust. Because of explanations produced by methods like LIME, we can trust that the predictions produced by the AI models are correct. Methods like LIME have also added improvement. Based on the explanations given by methods like LIME, we are able to improve our model. Research has shown that people who are not familiar with machine learning are being able to interpret the explanations produced by systems like LIME, and based on these explanations, are able to tell good models from bad ones. So LIME has given non-machine learning experts more information about the models. Furthermore, non-machine learning experts who have access to explanations and who perform some feature engineering can improve the models better than machine learning experts who have no access to explanations. So having access to these explanations is absolutely critical. As of 2018, under GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, people have the right to explanations. Companies who automate decision-making but must provide explanation behind their decision. So from here, we can jump to the topic of ethics in AI. Next slide, please. Today, AI is making decisions that directly impact people's lives, such as what % interest rate you get on your loan, or whether you get that job you applied for, or whether your kid really goes to that college that they want to go to. In fact, the fact that the decision is being made by an algorithm and not a human does not make it immune to bias or make it ethical or moral. So, should we or should we not trust the results from AI models? Or should the question be, what does it take to build trust in an AI model that is being developed? There are 5 pillars of trust. First of all, fairness. How can we ensure that the AI model is fair towards everybody, especially towards historically unrepresented groups? Bias can start even before the model is built. We need to understand if the data itself is biased. If it is, data scientists need to deal with that data to ensure fairness. The second is explainability. As we have explained earlier, being able to explain the results of the model and the relationship between the different variables is extremely important to create trust. The third is robustness. Can we ensure end users that nobody can hack such an AI model and make use of it for their own specific needs and disadvantage willfully other people and make a particular group benefit over others? Fourth is transparency. Are we giving people the necessary information and data to learn more about that model? And finally, we have data privacy. Are we assuring people's data privacy? With ethical AI in mind, any organization needs to follow 3 principles when thinking about AI. The first principle is that the purpose of artificial intelligence is really meant to augment human intelligence and not replace it. The second principle is that data and the insights from this data belong to the creator alone. And the third principle is that AI systems should be transparent and explainable. The problem of producing ethical AI should be considered as a socio-technological problem and should be looked at holistically, meaning we should consider, first of all, people, the team working on the AI model, the data science team curating the data to train the model. How diverse is it? Does the organization working on the AI models promote diversity? The wisdom of the crowds is a proven mathematical theory. The more diverse your group of people, the less chance for error. That is absolutely true in the realm of artificial intelligence. We should also consider process or governance. What will the organization working on the AI model promise both the employees as well as the market with respect to what standards it will stand by for the AI models in terms of fairness, explainability, and accountability? Finally, we should consider the tools. What are the tools, AI engineering methods, frameworks that you can use to ensure the 5 pillars of trust? In summary, if all these principles and points are taken into account, then the organizations can ensure ethical and trustworthy AI. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya. So this kind of concludes sort of some of the thoughts that we heard, but we really enjoyed so far the discussion. So we just wanted to open it up a little bit more. And right now we're going to do a roundtable discussion, sort of with our guest speakers. And I'll pass it over to Sheldon. I know he has a burning question for Warren.
Burning question. Thank you, Sylvia.
Burning question.
Totally. One thing I wanted to cover was trends. It's a topic that comes up often in conversation with you and I, Warren. And with how close you are to this space, I think you offer pretty unique insight into what these trends mean in the short and long term. So, quickly, just what's your opinion on the trends that we can look out for, maybe in the health space, finance, or just customer experience in general? What are you seeing? What do you feel like it's coming, and what are the changes that you're anticipating in the next little while?
Well, AI in general, it's learning to be helpful right now, whether you're talking healthcare or utility or operations or any of the different areas. As a space, it's learning to be helpful, and people are figuring it out, and it's finding its place in the world. It can be helpful. It can be transient. It can move with us. It can enable us everywhere. And I think that's what you're going to see in the very, very short term, not too far off future. The customer experience and the science around it, it's going to change. And it's going to become life interactive all the time. And people don't even realize it. Right now, there's AI algorithms underneath this meeting that are running things that we're not aware of, that are moving things around. It's already there. There's even rudimentary AI sitting in most fridges at the moment, or machine learning or different aspects. AI is going to enable information and data to become human unique and bring knowledge together that enables better decisions and helpful outcomes that are data enabled, suggestive, predictive, tailored to the person, and completely interactive. And I think you're going to see all that in not too distant future. I know some of the people on this call might be, I'm going to be a grandfather at some point in my life. I heard that this morning, and I know I'm in my mid 40s. But guess what? This is going to happen before my kids have kids. And that's just why it is. And where that goes past that, I think it's going to be magical when you add in quantum and GPU and the other aspects that are mixing with that bunch. So
For sure.
I think it's going to be an interactive experience.
Excellent. Thank you, Warren. Over to you, Sylvia.
So I have a question for Edgar. And, we talked about AI. There is still not a wide adaptation for many various barriers. And it's the question of fairness, is it equitable, and a number of other things. In your experience, what do you see within financial services? What are some strategies to remove some of those barriers to AI?
Yeah, good question. I think I see two of them. The first one is education. That's key. So all the way from executives to middle management to frontline personnel, AI needs to be demystified. Everyone needs to have at least a basic education in AI to, at the very least, just help the organization embrace it wholly and push it forward. The other one, I think it's also to have small, bite-sized, measurable initiatives to show value through small wins and only expand to larger initiatives as the enterprise's AI maturity increases.
Makes sense. Thank you. Thank you, Edgar.
Awesome. Thank you. So a quick question for you, Tay. You mentioned personalization as being like a component that helps people, accept AI. I think it's safe to say, the pandemic, my opinion is that it's greatly accelerated the interest and desire from people that would have traditionally been opposed to maybe looking at AI as early adopters. But you did mention that split between the early adopters and the laggards is growing. So interested to know how AWS helps facilitate in organizations where those types of issues are persistent, or there might be conflict in terms of company culture with regard to moving forward and actually accepting AI and what it means to improving the customer experience in general.
Yeah, great point about accessibility of the technologies. And I think it really starts with, to Edgar's point, education and awareness. And one of the best things about us shopping, on our phones, online, getting deliveries and having Alexa make recommendations for us is that it has demystified to an extent. It's put it into our pocket, I think, in a rapid way that may not have occurred had we been going to the market, had we been, walking our usual route home from the train station. So that's been something that I think the pandemic has changed, which is the accessibility and the real essential nature of shopping. Amazon.com's Amazon Personalize is the technology that Amazon.com uses to make those recommendations. If I shop for a particular kind of, if I'm buying a purse, maybe I also need other accessories. And then in the grocery store, if I'm buying cheese, maybe I need crackers. So these are simple things that, we put together ourselves. And what is kind of surprising is that it's taken this long for technology to catch up and to anticipate us and our needs in this way. And I think Warren's point about how exciting it is that, every curve of growth goes from mostly flat to mostly upwards. And I think we're reaching that inflection point, as I mentioned, now with over 100,000 customers adopting AI and machine learning technologies with AWS, and a broader range to make the technology accessible, plus partners who can lead the way, who can help customers to find the most return on their investment for adopting these technologies. In mining, it's not always what you would think it is. Some of our, raw materials, mining oil and gas companies, just predicting those machine breakdowns, anticipating and providing proactive maintenance can be a huge benefit to those customers. And I think we'll continue to see that necessity is driving this technology and the supply chain constraints that we have in the economy, the constraints of nursing staff that Edward mentioned. These are the kinds of things that I think are, helping our partners and our customers to do more for their customers.
Great. Thank you so much, Tay. Totally makes sense. I think over to you, Sylvia.
Yeah, so I have a question to kind of piggyback on really that, personalization and prevention. And I recently attended Digital Health Innovation Symposium, and it was focused on veteran affairs. And what I found really interesting, that sort of majority of the health providers, top of mind was prevention. It's being able to really kind of look ahead and prevent and really optimize the care. And my question for Edward is, how can providers, software providers like ScriptString, better aligned with big enterprise health providers like United Health Group to improve the patient care?
I think, especially when it revolves around the VA, who has many disparate systems and data, old and new data. I think that where you can lend tremendous support and help is utilizing AI to do the data analytics and extraction. Very similar to use case number 2, which is the ability to extract data in real time, analyze that data, drive that into a predictive model, which can be multivariate and linear based upon all the variables that you gather and learn about through AI, and drive those variables into a model and use that to do predictive analytics, most likely to be readmitted, most likely to use, most likely to be readmitted, or most likely to use the ER, etc., and driving that information into a care plan. So in the VA, as an example, those patients that are most at risk have a care plan. And it's generally reactive. When something happens, they pull up that care plan and deal with that patient. You can flip that entire model and make it proactive, so that by utilizing data and AI, driving it into predictive modeling, you can determine what services are most suited for that group of people, as well as that individual veteran and patient, and there drive improved outcome and reduce cost.
Yeah, building on that, Edward, I think that we see some early adoption of this kind of predictive analytics in the life sciences space, where it takes a lot longer for development of and launch of new drugs, that those can't necessarily be reactive. And there is a wealth of data that the more sophisticated life sciences entities are taking advantage of, especially when they can combine. A lot of them have consumer data as well, if they're across that industry as well. So being able to anticipate where to invest to have the biggest impact on improving health outcomes on a long-term basis. And with the VA having such a, and CMS as well for active duty and veterans now combining their data, the largest data sets on patients is, we already have the answers and they're in that data. And so I'm excited about what we're going to find out from using AI technologies.
I agree, and again, it's driving results and driving output and improving the patient outcome, and identifying those services that are best suited for those vets in that core group. And it's the 80-20 rule, right? 20% of these patients are driving well over 80% of cost and outcome, and identifying them and driving services to that core group of people, and utilizing AI to do that is significant. As you know, it's a huge issue with people, and getting people and having enough talent to analyze this data and work with the patients. So again, utilizing AI will be significant in that perspective, in decisioning.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Quick question, I guess, focusing on the finance and healthcare space. So I'll split this between maybe Edward first. for a software provider that's interested in, getting into your industry and improving the experience, what do you look for in terms of understanding and capabilities when you are, I'm sure you're talking to all kinds of different organizations about this. What do you look for in terms of making sure that they understand not only your needs, but their capabilities in terms of helping you realize your goals?
Is that for Edward Barry or Edgar?
Oh, sorry, I was going to split it between the two of you. We'll go with Edward first, if you're okay with that. Edward
Sure.
Barry, yeah.
That's fine. I think that what we're looking for in partners and what we're looking for in moving forward in healthcare is understanding of ease of use, understanding of data and utilization of data. So as we look out across the healthcare industry, some of the larger healthcare service organizations and providers have tremendous amount of resources, and they are doing a lot of advanced analytics and trying to do some proactive scheduling. It's those small healthcare organizations that require additional services and support. So we look for partners that understand data, that use technology, that have real-time solutions that are driving business solutions in not theory, but in actual practice. So building real models, applying those models and predictability, and using the outcome to drive better healthcare initiatives and improve patient outcome. If that answers your question, Sheldon.
100%. Thank you, Edward. Same idea for you, Edgar. Like in terms of, you work at CIBC, you've got your eyes on a lot of the advancements that are coming in this space. In terms of what you use to identify the criteria for bringing in those types of organizations or partners, what are you looking for in finance?
So yeah, first of all, I'm positive that leveraging state-of-the-art in the AI space will definitely require the help of multiple outside partners, each now delivering AI as a service in the particular area of expertise or that they specialize on. I mean, we know that the complexity power of AI models and also the cost is increasing exponentially. So take GPT-3, for example, for those of you that may not know, it's a natural language processing model, state of the art. It costs millions to train, just to train, not counting the research and development costs. It has hundreds of billions of parameters. It's huge, and it's incredibly powerful. So there are plenty of examples out there of what you can do. One of my favorites is for Visual Studio Code. There's a plugin that writes code for you. You just ask it to write something, and it does it for you. It's great. But yeah, outside of just a handful of firms, I guess nobody will be expected to train models such as this. Most of us will not be able to even download the model on premises, like a pre-trained model like we were able to do maybe a couple of years ago. Just go to the website, grab the model, maybe a couple of gigabytes long, and utilize it on our own. So we can only use, I think, we'll only be able to use state-of-the-art AI through partners, through APIs. I think the era of small data scientists developing models from scratch in-house, might not be over, but might be coming to an end, right? So I think in-house data scientists will work with companies like ScriptString to bring their AI solutions in-house through the services that they offer, through their APIs or the software that they provide. I think the role of the data scientists will be to basically know the landscape of what's out there, know their businesses well, right, and be able to leverage both and work with partners like ScriptString, or depending on whomever's out there, right, depending on the problem at hand, and bring the power of AI through that avenue.
Beautiful. Thank you. I think with that, like Tay, you did such a great job answering your last question. I think my next one would have been redundant. So should we just go on to the Q&A maybe?
Yeah, if you have not put in your questions in yet.
I can get us started with what we have right now. So this first question is for Sylvia. It says, if I'm interested in using ScriptString's AI technology in my business, what are the next steps I should take and how do I get started?
That's a good question, Allison. Thank you. If you are interested in using ScriptString AI technology, and I'm going to say AI technology, period, obviously you're going to call whoever sort of that software service providers and have a conversation. I think sort of depending on what the needs of the organization are, AI is not always the answer. Just because you want to use AI because you think it's going to help you, it's not necessarily going to solve every problem. It is going to solve those big data problems. It's going to solve some of the problems we talked about today. But before you can really get started is us understanding what are the needs, doing a little bit more of a discovery and understanding of the problem at hand, and then sort of providing the right solution, which might be ScriptString AI.
Great, thank you. This next question is for Warren. It says, can you please give some specific examples of how AI technology can be used to automate repetitive tasks in businesses? How does ScriptString's technology do this?
Well, ScriptString's technology learns your data, learns you, and learns your organization. And it takes it back a step to the initial parts of why do we care? Why are we there? What is it that we're interested in? It's the first parts that people always ask or people look at, regardless of if they've created it or if they've gotten it from somewhere else. So we take a step back and we answer those questions first. We also use those answers in order to help empower people and help bring together the relationships and the information around that so that we can go through and cut through some of the complexities that people have created. We don't care about document formats. We don't care about the structures that are in there. We don't care about what was done from a human being perspective to create that, as long as it's a way of sharing information. We've been designed and architected to take in and streamline that information. And what that does is it allows people to be human, and it allows data scientists to be data scientists, and it allows data to be data. And it gets rid of the vanilla and gives us all the flavors. And that gives us a very rich pot in order to make something very beautiful out of. Ooh, that got poetic. Well, this is being, I'll be quiet. Sorry.
Thank you, Warren. This next question is from Maya. It says, I have been hesitant in the past to implement AI technology in my business due to security concerns. Can you please elaborate on how ScriptString's technology will ensure that my company's information remains private and secure?
Well, actually at ScriptString, what we make sure of is not to own the data. So the users or the customers will keep their own data, and we will do all the analysis and the predictions while keeping the data on the customer's side. And this way it is ensured that the data will not be jeopardized.
Great, thank you. Okay, this next question I think Sheldon can answer. It says, aside from intelligent document processing, what are the most common ways companies are implementing AI solutions into their business? Maybe you could give examples of ScriptString's clients specifically.
Sure. I think two core areas that we're introducing a lot of our customers to in terms of the intelligent document processing aside, it's really their ability to onboard and consolidate their data in a seamless and very, very straightforward way. So while we want to rely on the user for assistance and feedback in terms of training their models, we tend to offer suggestions and assistance in places where it makes sense. So we want to compress that timeline that it takes everyone from the C-level, director level down to the workers that are doing all the heavy lifting with the manual effort. We want to help facilitate not only a more productive environment by taking that load off of those users, but putting it in front of them in a way that not only makes it a pleasure to use, but gives them immediate value. So we're leveraging the AI capabilities of the ScriptString platform to really help guide them through that process and ultimately alleviate them of the effort that's required to do those cumbersome tasks of bringing 12 disparate spreadsheets together. Could take a person a week if depending on the size of these things. We help really compress that down to like hours, if not minutes. And that's a key component of what our customers are seeing in terms of benefit, is that we're letting analysts be analysts and get back to the work of actually doing the analysis. We're letting people at the director and C-level get the results and advice and insights that they need in real time to make the decisions they need, as opposed to looking retroactively at all these incredible reports that might not be that relevant or valid by the time it gets on their desk. So that is one area. And another core sort of focus that we have is the same approach to just the data analysis in general. With that consolidated data set, we're providing users a very, very simple methodology to really cut through their data, to do segmentation reports, cohort analysis in the case of customer experience, and providing them recommendations based on real-time analysis of their data sets that they have quickly incorporated and consolidated to provide the value on the analysis side. So, the document processing definitely a key component, but those are two areas that we're seeing increased interest in, not only from small organizations, but enterprises as well, because they're trying to leverage their resources as much as possible and increase the productivity around these types of tasks. And currently, the heavy lifting that's involved with a lot of those things I mentioned could take weeks, hours, months of a really highly skilled resources time. So they want to put those big brains to better work and actually leverage them for better business decisions and better customer experience in the end. Thanks, Allison.
Great, thank you. So we're at time now. So Sylvia, do you want to close us out?
Yeah, sure. So thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and hopefully you enjoyed sort of some of the story you have heard. If there is any questions that you might have for any of our speakers following sort of this session, please feel free to send us an email and connect. We are, as we said, we are recording this session, so we are happy to share the seminar session and email to you as well afterwards. And we welcome any questions, any comments. We would love to hear from you. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.